Hey, I've got another shop class video for you guys today. This one's going to be a little bit more hands-on though, so we won't be using the whiteboard in this episode. But what I've decided is the videos where I'm kind of explaining theory of operation and showing how different functions on chairs work, and maybe some of the programming stuff that we'll get into later on in future videos, those are what I'm going to categorize under the shop class series. So, didn't plan on doing more than one permobil video in a row, but I happened to have this one in the garage and I was taking it apart anyways, and there had actually been a number of people that had been asking about leg rests and other things on permobil chairs. So here you go. Here's all you could ever want to know about permobil electromechanical leg rests. Words are hard. Why is there motion in my backyard? We've got another informational video today. We're going to be going over yet another permobil thing. So I got this soccer chair back and it needed a little bit of repair. I had to completely take apart the leg rests on it, but I figured this was a great excuse to show how the mechanical, well, their power but also mechanical leg rests work on permobil 3G seating. To show one that's already assembled, I've got this C300 here. And as a lot of you may know, when you raise the leg rests, they also extend as they go up. Permobil actually implemented a really clever and simple system to do this. Now, I briefly showed this mechanism right here just in operation in a shop class video, but we're actually going to go through the details of how it works today. I'll activate the leg rest and show you it operating, and then I've got another set of leg rests that's already removed from a chair, and I'll show you exactly how it works. But if you notice, as the leg rests go up, we have this metal bracket with a fabric strap, which is right here, that loops around some rollers. And as the leg rests go up, there's some little rollers that ride on that little ramp track looking thing. And effectively it changes the length of that strap. There you can see the little ramp it rolls up and down on right here. And that strap basically goes around this, comes down the length of the leg rests, and then is affixed to the part that your feet sit on. Now, these actually rely on you sitting in the chair and also a little bit of gravity to force them down. If you just push up on this, you can see it slides up and down freely. And that's kind of the way it's designed. And this fabric strap here is what keeps them from going down too far. So let's take a look at a set of these that are removed from the chair, and I'll show you how all these components work together. By the way, I like to do this skateboard grip tape mod on most of my chairs. And since I normally wear skate shoes, which are designed to work with grip tape, it works really well to hold your feet on the foot plates. If you have, well, some minor spasms, or if you're hitting bumps and whatnot on the sidewalk, it keeps them from flying off as much. Haven't done it on this Quantum yet. This thing has some other issues going on, but yeah. Link to that video over here and down below. Alright, here we have all the components taken apart. They were removed from this soccer chair over here. It had a really strange failure that I had never seen before. There's some little retaining screws here on the back for this mechanism, and one of the screws had somehow backed completely out, and it had lodged itself right here. There's this little plastic piece, and you can see that that screw wore a big hole in the plastic and kind of carved out some of the metal there. I've got a picture of what that looked like, but basically it froze up the mechanism and the leg rests weren't able to move anymore. So that took a lot of work with a rubber mallet to get that back into shape. So this is the top part of the mechanism, and this is the little roller thing with the strap that goes around it that you saw up underneath the chair. These two metal parts right here thread through sort of some holders that are on the seat base of the chair, and then this lever right here connects to the actuator. I'll show you that real quick. So all that stuff is hiding under these little plastic covers on these permobils, and they pretty much just pull right off. There we go. And then there's some little end caps here. And this is basically the same thing we're seeing over there. These little rods come out. I'm not exactly sure why they do it this way. I think there might be some other parts or accessories that connect onto these. But this part right here and right here are attached to the underside of the seat pan assembly. So these two mounting points are what's holding it on the chair. And then our actuator motor connects right here. That's that same arm I just showed you. And then it goes back, and there's another mounting plate on the back of the chair here that connects to. It's a little bit hard to see, but it's that silver bolt right up there. Now the way this works, we have our top piece here, then we have this intermediate tube that is kind of curve shaped, and then we have our actual footplate assembly here. This part slides into the leg rest assembly, and then there's a series of set screws here that hold this all together. You can see the marks here from where those set screws have dug into the side of this piece of metal. This portion here slides over the upper shaft and basically rolls up and down like that with the assistance of these little ball bearing rollers on each side here. And to keep the metal from scratching, there's this little plastic piece that slides down, and this plastic piece basically gets forced inside this outer shaft, which takes a little bit of work, but it'll slide down, and you can see these two little plastic divots here, and those sink into those holes. We're not going to put that in right now because it's kind of hard to remove. Now here's the ingenious bit. Remember that strap I was talking about before? That's this guy here. This attaches to the top of the mechanism. It's looped and stitched around, and there's a little bracket here with these screws that hold it in. Then it feeds down over the top, and we have this little plastic roller thing here that it can ride on. It feeds down through this mechanism and through another roller that's down here. So as this mechanism operates, the strap can basically slide on those rollers as it goes up and down. Now if we follow this assembly down, the lower part slides over like I showed before, and then there's a little metal plate that the strap goes through, and that attaches with two screws right here, which locks the strap in place. So basically that strap is what controls how far down this bottom section can go. Again, it's kind of relying on gravity and also the weight of the user's legs keeping it pushed down. That sounds like some of the protests are getting nearby. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Anyways, what this looks like when your leg rests are fully down, this little swiveling part here is pointing pretty much straight back, as you can see there. And our strap connects on the front, goes over the top, over these rollers, down through the inside, and this part here with this bracket would normally be attached to this. And then our actuator is going to be connected here. So the actuator connects here, which pushes this whole mechanism up. Now if you remember that ramp that's underneath there, these little rollers here are sitting on that ramp. And there's a little spring here as well, which on this one it became disconnected, so I'm going to have to rehook that up. But basically what happens, the weight of your legs pushing down on the footrests keeps this whole thing in tension, as well as the spring. And as this rotates up, it causes that mechanism to ride up the ramp, which as it does that, makes this strap longer. If we go back down here, keep an eye on the strap. See how it gets shorter? And then as we go back up, it gets longer again. So it's a very simple design. And that's what I love about things that are well engineered. There's not nearly as many moving parts as there could be on other things. They do sell power leg rests that have 2 electric actuators in them. And I mean, those work fine. But you know, in most instances, this gets the job done and it's super simple and it almost never breaks. Like this is the only broken one I've ever run across. And it's only because one of these screws came loose and jammed itself down in there. So really simple, very strong. This webbing has an insane break strength. So it just sits here underneath your leg rest and you never really see it. It slides up and down, just doing its thing, and it's completely out of the way. So let's partially assemble this thing and I'll show you a little bit more. So let's go ahead and put this thing back together here. Since I've gotten the problem fixed, well, other than this spring, yeah, I'm actually gonna have to look up the diagrams to see how that works, but we can assemble the rest of this, I'm pretty sure, before I do that. So we're gonna get this out of the way, slide our little plastic cover up here. And our 2 little wheels, made sure those are still on here, and these 2 bolts are now tight. So we're gonna slip this back over, and then I'm going to push this little plastic piece down in here, which, actually now that I'm looking, actually I'm gonna have to grab the file. See the little nub sticking up there? That's keeping it from going in. Let me grab a file real quick. Oh, wow. So usually when I film these videos, I put a couple chairs out in the driveway and I have the garage door open for more light. Seeing as how there's police helicopters going on and there's people very close, I'm gonna pull this stuff back inside and we're gonna pick this up in a little bit. Okay, that got interesting for a little bit. Let's continue. Where were we? Oh yes, attaching this strap. So we've got a couple of these little bolts here that'll go in. And when I took this off, I marked it with a Sharpie. Looks like we're still good. So let's get these in here. And this little bracket here actually kind of clamps the strap in place as well, so it keeps it from sliding. Try to get it lined up so it's straight, that way we're not putting any axial load on that strap, but I don't think that really matters at all. And now you can get kind of a better idea of how this thing works. I'm going to wait to put the foot plates on here until I get it onto the chair, because these are unnecessarily heavy. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to pull that chair around over here and we're going to unscrew these weird little rods and we'll get this reinstalled on the chair. Okay, so I figured out how this spring is supposed to go back on here. This part gets pushed all the way up and then the other half of it pulls through and clips on right here. So now we have spring tension on this thing. And that keeps it forced up basically and riding along that track like so. Now taking a look at this chair, I've got the seat elevator raised up and it's tilted back a little ways. This is an M300 by the way. You can see we have our two mounting points here that attaches to, and this is our little ramp assembly here that those bearings ride up and down in. And then our actual tilt actuator is right over here. There's a couple of these little metal inserts that go into each one of these supports here. And then when you put this in, you're going to want to extend this metal bracket out and then load it in so it's riding on that ramp down here. And then line this up, kind of hold it in place with one hand. Then there's these super long bolts and these super long bushings that go over the bolts. There we go, something like that. And then these thread through, and the middle black part of this is threaded. So you can start that in, then we'll put the one on the other side in here. And now it should hang in place. This actually can give a really good angle of how this works. As I push up and down, you can see that this gets longer. But as you can see, that spring is now keeping a little bit of tension on the whole thing. And if you look right down here, you can see that arm moving up and down and going just a little bit past center when it's all the way retracted. Now they have to have that spring in there because if it wasn't, as it raised out and that arm was pointing down, it would get trapped. So the spring is super important for this to work properly. If that spring did break and you went to raise the legs, it could pull this part down and it would damage a lot of stuff. Reconnecting our actuator assembly to the leg rest is pretty simple as well. It's got sort of a sleeve on it with a bushing and a washer, and we've got a long bolt with another washer on it. It threads through the actuator, bushing goes on, and that goes through the actuator. We've got one more washer. And then this arm is actually threaded. So once we get it on here, we can just thread this in by hand. And this bolt is going to go all the way through to the other side of this bracket. There we go. As we screw this in, you'll see it start popping out this side here. And usually these components are not very tight. This doesn't have to be tight because there's a nylock lock nut that goes on the inside of this right here. So I'm just going to use the Allen wrench here and snug this down just so it's tight. Doesn't have to be very much. And then we can tighten this up the rest of the way, which that's actually going to require a socket. I'll have to do that here in a minute, but let me show you it actually functioning now. So now when we push on our seating control, the actuator forces this arm out and extends it just like we were seeing before. Now, permobil doesn't use any limit switches. These actuators are internally aware of their own position. So you can hear it slow down and stop on its own. Same thing with going back the other way. So if you do take this arm off the actuator, you have to be very careful not to rotate it. Because if you rotate that a number of turns, the calibration will be off, and the sensing that it has relies on this always being connected. And if that gets out of sync or out of clock, it can force the actuator all the way to its end stop on maximum or minimum and can damage it. On these leg rest assembly, there's 4 set screws. The outer 2 adjust the height of the individual leg rest. So if you want to make one higher than the other, you can do that. And the inner 2 set the height of this entire unit when it slides over this bar. So we're going to put this on here. I'm just going to set it right about here. I think that's roughly where it was before. Then we're going to tighten down these 2 inner set screws, and that will lock it in place. There we go. Check these while we're here. And that should be it. Now I still need to tighten up this lock nut here. And then I'm also realizing now I did not put these leg pads back on. These have a bracket on the back of them. Actually, this one's kind of bent, so I'm gonna have to straighten that out. But there's a bracket on the back of this, and there's 4 little screws that go through these holes. This just hooks on here like so, and then you slide that plate down till it's right about there, and then you can tighten your screws. I need to put this in the vise and straighten it up a little bit because it got bent. But yeah, that's how those attach. Now they're missing on this chair. I'll have to check and see if they're in the van somewhere. But this little cover basically goes over the top here. And you can see the little strap sticking through the top right there. But that covers up this mechanism and also prevents you from getting your hands or fingers in here and pinching stuff. Oh, I just realized I didn't tighten these all the way. I'll have to do that too. And then these little end caps go on here and cover up the end of this mechanism. So it basically seals it up and makes it look nice. Okay, but there you go. That's how the permobil power leg rests, power mechanical leg rests work. Very simple, very well engineered. And they don't break that often. Just in the interest of completing this thought process, I'm going to show you this F3 I have here, which has the dual power or power articulating leg rests. I'm not sure what they call them exactly, but they have 2 actuator motors in them instead of this mechanical mechanism I was showing you. Okay, so this is a 2016 F3. It still has the more classic styling. But as you can see here, when you look at the leg rests, they appear to be a little bit different. They still use the same exact actuator as that other chair I showed you to change the elevation. But if we come around here, you'll see there's now an additional actuator right here. And this one controls the length of these. So when we extend these ones out, the first actuator lifts them, and then the second one extends them. And there you can hear that second actuator kick in. Now these permobils, they sound a little bit weird. You can hear sort of a warbly noise as this is happening. The actuators obviously move at different speeds because they're different actuators, but the position sensing in there is keeping an eye on where everything is. And if one actuator goes a little bit faster than the other, it speeds it up or slows it down to make it a nice smooth transition. So that's why we get that strange noise. This system is, I believe, on most of their standing chairs and chairs that have active reach. That's where they tilt forward and do things like that. And it's kind of necessary because they have to precisely control where these foot plates are going to end up when you're tilting forward using active reach or, you know, the standing functions that these chairs may have. Now, as you can see, this chair has an easy lock on it that has an anti-rotation bar, and that's sticking out here in the front. And these chairs are programmed in such a way that they know that is there. So as you're tilting the chair up or down or forward or back or moving the leg rests in or out, it is aware of where that thing is. So if your leg rests are pulled in all the way, and then you go to tilt the chair down, you can see those might collide. But the chair knows that's going on and it will automatically adjust. I don't know if you can see that there, but the leg rest just kicked out a little bit. Let me zoom in and we'll do that again. Okay, so you can see our anti-rotation bar down here and you can see our leg rest here. I'm not going to touch the leg rest. Just watch what happens when I tilt the chair forward. You'll see those leg rests kick out a little bit all on their own. It's pretty subtle, but you can probably see it. And it just ensures that that gap is always there and the parts never collide. So as you can see, the things we were talking about in Shop Class episode 1, these chairs, as they evolve, have to become more complex. And, you know, things like easy locks, which people may not have had in years past, and then easy locks that have the anti-rotation bar that sticks out front, combine that with the power leg rests, you have to have extra technology, extra sensors, and ways to make this all work. But anyways, there you go. That's permobil leg rests. I wasn't planning on doing 2 permobil videos in a row, but that soccer chair came in for repair, and I figured since it was already apart, I might as well explain how it works. Should have another normal-ish vlog coming here soon. Normal, there's that word again. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully it kind of shed some light behind the curtain, as it were, and I'll catch you guys in a few days.